So let's go ahead and show you what I'm going to use to press this hub and out of the knuckle. So I have here a 2.5 inch grade 8 bolt. It's a 1/2 inch in diameter. This is going to be plenty strong enough to push this out. I've got an oversized nut that I will use as a spacer. I've got a washer that I will use to separate between the nut spacer and the actual grade 8 nut that I'm going to use to press this off. Okay, go ahead and install it on the hub. Here's what's left of the wheel stud that I had to cut out. They were too long to back them all the way out. They hit the backing plate here, so I just used an angle grinder and cut them off. So once I cut them off, they popped right out, and we're going to go ahead and get the bolts ready to be used as the press. So insert the bolt through the open stud hole in the wheel flange here. Go ahead and insert the oversized nut, the washer, and now we'll go ahead and thread on grade 8 nut. Here you see that I've gone ahead and I knocked out 3 wheel studs, 1, 2, 3, inserted the grade 8 bolts and all those. You can actually just use 1 bolt, but it's a little bit more difficult in that it might not make the hub press out of the knuckle evenly. You can see here the bolts line up perfectly on a flat section of the wheel knuckle, and we'll have no problems pushing this out. I'm going to go ahead and use a little PV blaster on the joint between the hub and wheel knuckle. Ooh, that was good. That sounded good. That sounded good. Let me show you the progress we're making. You can already see that I can fit a screwdriver in between the wheel knuckle back here and the hub right here. So here you can see our 3 bolts have clearly pushed or pulled the hub away from this spacer. And so we successfully pulled the hub out of the knuckle, but the next challenge is that the axle is still lodged or wedged or frozen within the hub itself. So I was afraid that this was going to happen, because when you're pulling the hub out, if the axle doesn't separate from the hub, it starts to pull out of the transaxle. To use next is a puller to see if we can go ahead and pull the hub off of the axle shaft. So we have 2 things working against me. One is that this puller is a bit undersized to pull this hub off here, and secondly, this is not a very quality puller. This is a Harbor Freight cheapo here. Let's give it a shot. Oh, it's working. That's sweet. I can see it pulling the hub right off the axle. This is good news here. There we go. It took a few moments and I cleaned up all the corrosion here on the aluminum surface of the knuckle. Got it pretty clean and everything. I'm going to go ahead and we'll put some anti-seize in here. Go ahead and put some on the surface of just a light coat on the surface of the wheel hub here. And go ahead and get these 2 married back together again. There we go. There we go. I got it lined up now. Go ahead and reinstall the bolts for the hubs. I secure the hub to the knuckle. So I'm preparing to reinstall the brake shoes on the Acadia, and I wanted to lay the parts out and just get an orientation and make sure I have all the pieces and parts. Here on the left-hand side, I have the retainer pin and retainer clips, and the same over here on the right side as well too. I have the lower connecting spring and the upper connecting spring. Don't get them confused. Side by side, you can see that they are different. You have the self-adjuster, a screw here. I did already put some anti-seize on the threads to ensure that it remains movable for the life of the vehicle. Here are the shoes themselves. The shoes do look similar, left, right, up, down, to make sure I didn't reinstall them incorrectly or upside down or backwards, whatever. I marked, I'm not sure if you can see it here, I scratched an L onto the left side, R onto the right side. So I've got the left shoe installed. It's held in place by the retaining clip here, and I also have the indent or the notch in the bottom of the shoe already attached to or setting inside of the emergency brake cable. To set this bottom retaining spring up for reinstallation, you need to hook it here, and it needs to go above the emergency brake actuator and behind the hub. Initially I was trying to go beneath here and it just did not work. It didn't work at all. So you seat it in place. There we go. Let's go ahead and reinstall the star adjuster. Since I have the original brake shoes back on the car, I will go ahead and I will screw this all the way in. It'll make it easier to install, and then when we're finished, I'll back it off or I'll lengthen it to about where it was initially. Let's reinstall the spring. There we go. Let's continue with the reinstallation process. I've already reattached the ABS sensor on the back side of the splash guard here, so you won't see me do that. That required a 10mm bolt. Let's go ahead and reinstall the rotor, and we're going to line up the hole right here for the tapered bolt, for that hole right there. I'm going to put more anti-seize on this one because it is a new hub in there. So we'll go ahead and reinstall the bracket for the caliper. So here is the caliper bracket, and there are the two bolts. Next we'll apply some disc brake quiet, keep the brakes from squealing or chattering. Got the torque wrench set for 151 pounds, that is. Looks like we're good.